So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Reverend Pam Driesell, and hopefully some of you were introduced to her at least a little bit if you listened to the episode of the All I Know Is This podcast, where I had a chance to talk with Pam. And we shared in that podcast that our paths have crossed in life several different times. The first in Roanoke, Virginia, where Pam ended up after college. But before she got to Roanoke, she grew up first in Davidson, North Carolina, and then in Silver Spring, Maryland, and went to, actually, she told me in the dinner line, spent a year at the University of Richmond before she transferred to James Madison University, having grown up near the University of Maryland. University of Richmond was a little small, so went looking for something a little bigger. And then after JMU, she moved to Roanoke to work for Young Life, and that is where I first knew her and knew of her, and always just knew that, my friends and I who were in high school at the time, she was somebody you wanted to be around, and that really drew people to her. She was in Roanoke for about 11 years and then went to seminary at Princeton Theological Seminary. I had gone off to college and then also ended up at Princeton, and we were there for 1 year together, and we were in a group of 8 women that would meet on Fridays in a dorm room for a little time together we called Wine and Wine. That I think got us all through seminary and some hard weeks, but I was really delighted to have that friendship renewed there. And then from Princeton, she spent a year in Charlottesville during seminary. She converted from Episcopalian to Presbyterian, having seen the light or something. It happens. And so she did an internship at a Presbyterian church in Charlottesville for a year, and then was called to Athens, Georgia, to plant a church. So she started a church in Athens that I think is still going strong, and was at that church for 11 years before she was called to Trinity Presbyterian Church in Atlanta as their pastor and head of staff. Pam was in that role at Trinity for nearly 10 years, and just last summer left that role and has been in sort of a discernment transition season. And the minute I knew that was happening, I sort of did some quick calculations and thought, if I ask her right now, she might not have any plans. And so I'm really excited for her to be here with us. I know that you will all really enjoy hearing her. I think of all the sermons I heard in seminary going to chapel every single week, apart from Derek's. Pam's is probably the one that I still remember the best. She is such a wonderful preacher, and also just a person with an enormous heart for people, for God, and for bringing people and God together. So I'm so happy that she's here with us tonight, and I'll turn it over to her. Thanks, Pam.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. You have no idea. It's been 6 months since I have, I don't know what I resigned, retired. I'm not really retired, but I'm just kind of figuring out what's next. But so I've been untethered, and it is so awesome to be working on speaking the good news. And I just thank you for the opportunity. I'm so excited to be here. And on Valentine's Day, what an appropriate time to get together. My husband said, really, they're going to do something on Valentine's Day? I go, hello, what better day to talk about love? Your theme is discipleship, and discipleship, that word sometimes is so overwhelming. A disciple is just a student. Really, that's what it means. To be a disciple is to be a student of love. That's it. Love God, love your neighbor, love self. How do we do that? It's a lifelong learning. So what an appropriate time to get together to start to dive in to what it means to be a student of the way of Jesus, the way of love, And to do that through this wonderful passage, John 9. How many of you have read John 9 in preparation for this? Okay, because a couple of people I met during our mocktail time, it's mentioned. Yeah, I've been reading. So good for you. Dive in, read it again tonight. We're going to go through it piece by piece. We're going to try to do 4 sections where each one holds up independently, but also they kind of build on each other. So we'll see how that goes. But again, I just can't think of anything I'd rather be doing, honestly, than being here with you tonight and talking about this. Because I just really believe the world needs people who are living in the way of Jesus. I think it matters more than anything else. So I'm excited that you're here and we're here together and we're gathered around tables and we're going to talk about what that means, and hopefully that's going to get integrated into our very being, the way we live and move and have our being, and we will be out in the world loving people the way Christ does. I think that's going to make a difference. I had the absolute positive joy of being with your pastors today at lunch, and they are amazing. And let me tell you something, they love you. I mean, really, they love you. And you know what's super cool too? They love each other. I mean, sometimes when I feel like we should pause and say thank you. That's such a gift. That doesn't always happen. But they love you, and it was just super fun to be with them. I've known Mary Kelly's parents, who are just rock stars in my life, and I just called you Mary Kelly. I told you I was going to do that. Mary Kay. Mary Kay's parents, and so I feel like I've known her better than I actually do know her. So when I saw her yesterday, I gave her this big bear hug. I go, I know I don't know you that well, but I feel like I do because of your folks. And I met Janet today, Jane T., and she's amazing, and what a story, and her circuitous route to right here in this place. And of course, Amy I've known since she was a student at Patrick Henry High School. Wow. So speaking of high school, I know your kids were off school today, is that right? Anybody who's got kids? Okay. Or for many of us, it's been a long time since we were in school, but I have a test for you. So let's put the next, so I want you to just tell me how many squares you see. Just off the top of your head, don't think about it too much.
16, 17, 18, 19, 26.
All right, what's your final answer? 27, 24. Okay, so I literally first was exposed to this illustration when I was a teenager. But it has had enduring value as a metaphor for me. Because of course, 16 squares, 4 by 4, that's easy. Oh no, wait, there's the bigger one. So that's 17. Ow, and then there's the 2 by 2s, and that ends up, there's like 31 squares. So, right, we've all got a 16 square appearance. Jung calls it a persona. You know, it's the way we dress, our race, our gender, our non-binary gender, our lifestyle, our hair color, the car we drive, all that's 16, right? Oh, 16, tattoos, yeah, I know that. I know everything about that person. Oh, young black guy in a hoodie. I know about that. Oh, young teenager who never looks me in the eye. I know about that. Oh, no. No, that's 16. What about 17? What about 18? What about 22? What about what hurts them? What about what brings them joy? Have you seen them laugh? Do you know who they're mad at? You see, we all come in together with our 16 squares, but there is so much more to us. And really, for each of us, it's not just 31. It goes on and on and on and on. Because, you know, we're made in the image of an infinite God. One of my favorite conversations I had at Trinity before I left was with Hal Adams. He's 88. And he said, Pam, you know what I'm finding in my twilight years? I can focus all my energies on deepening my relationships. Oh, going beyond the 16 squares. And he said, I'm learning so much. How many squares? What's your 16 squares? Now, again, speaking of high school, let's go to the next one. High school is a time when the 16 squares are super important. Now, you have to be of a certain age to know this crew, right? Everybody familiar with the Breakfast Club? All right, so these were some of the labels on those kids in the Breakfast Club who were all about judging each other by the 16 squares until they got locked in school together for an entire day. And what happened? They found out they had a little more in common than they realized. So, you know, they've got these labels up here: the criminal, the athlete, the basket case, the princess, the brain. Now, when I was in high school, we had those labels. They weren't those, though, right? We had the jocks. Anybody else have the jocks? Was that your generation? Anybody else? The jocks. We had the geeks. We had the freaks. Did anybody have the freaks? Yeah, they smoked pot. That's what the freaks did. All right. What else did we have? Anyway, what were some of the groups when you were in high school? Or if you're in high school, what are they now? Okay, the populars. The band kids. The nerds.
The Barbies.
The Barbies. Okay, we know how we feel about the Barbies. Okay. What else?
The smart kids.
The smart kids.
The rich kids.
The rich kids. What else? Any back there?
Greasers.
The greasers. Yes, the greasers. I forgot about those. We called those I don't know, in Montgomery County, Maryland, we had the grits. Did anybody call them the grits? Those were the greasers, essentially. Yeah. The what?
The hoods. Yeah.
The jukes?
Chooks.
Chooks.
Hayseeds.
The what?
Hayseeds.
Hayseeds. See, I don't even know these. What?
I'm an old guy. That's from the country.
It's from the country. Okay, so like a country bumpkin kind of person. Okay. All right, so see, all right, how many of you know what group you were in? How many of you wanted to be in a different one? Okay. How many of you have ever felt that an adult in your life made assumptions about you based on the group you were in? How many of you felt your peers made assumptions about you because of the group you were in? Teachers. How many of you ever felt that someone didn't really see you because of the group or the label you were living with? Yeah. That's what we do. That's what our passage today. Hold on, I gotta remember. Did I bring my passage up here? This is terrible. I really like to read from a Bible, but computers. Okay. In the beginning of our passage, we meet a guy who's been labeled. People have decided he's a beggar. And they've made certain assumptions about him because of that 16 square. But let's see how Jesus handles this. As he walked along, Jesus saw a man. Jesus saw a human being, blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned that he's blind?" Jesus answered, they said, "This man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind, and God's works will be revealed in him." We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. And when Jesus had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva. And he spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go now and wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went, and he washed, and he came back able to see. And the neighbors, and those who had seen him before as a beggar, began to ask, "Isn't he the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "Yes, it's him." And others were saying, "No, it's just someone like him." The man kept saying, "I am." I am the man. What an amazing story. I mean, we're going to live and walk around in this whole chapter this week, and here's where it starts. Jesus is walking along, and somebody who has been labeled the 16 squares, they know him. He's the beggar. I mean, either his parents sinned or he did. We know all about him. We're as sure about who he is and what he deserves and what he represents as we are of the dirt we're standing on. We see him, he's a beggar. But Jesus comes along and sees a man with a need. They see a problem and a quandary and an issue, something that needs an explanation. Jesus sees a human being with a need. And then Jesus does this great thing that every mother loves. He spits and wipes his needy person's face. Every mother has done that. Incidentally, that's also was a very common practice of folk healers at that time. So Jesus is using the common healing mechanisms of his day, spitting in the dirt, rubbing it in his eyes. Now go to the pole that's named Sent. Now go, wash yourself. And then when he comes back, right, wouldn't you think, here you've been the guy sitting in the city begging, blind since birth. Surely these people have seen you, those who you could not see. And you come back healed. Wouldn't you expect maybe a few high fives? But they don't get it. He's not the beggar anymore. He's broken outside of what they know about his 16 squares, and they cannot see beyond it. the neighbors began to ask. And instantly, these aren't curious questions, these are interrogations. There is a difference. Ask any teenager. Some were saying it's him, and others were like, no, it's just somebody like him. See, they never really saw him in the first place. What do you mean it's somebody? No, it's me. You mean you didn't see me all those times you walked by? No, I am the man. So I had so much fun digging into this thing, and I noticed something here that I probably got this wrong, but I like the imagery anyway. I'm convinced this verse right here is John's version of Matthew 25. Anybody know Matthew 25? I was hungry. You gave me something to eat. I was in jail and you visited me. I was naked, you gave me some clothes. Because right here, I've never noticed this. The original language, and I hate to pull that out, but it's true. He kept saying, and all the biblical things, they translate them, I am the man. But it's the man is not actually there. It's just I am. And hello, this is John's gospel where it's full of Jesus' statements. I am. This is the exact thing that Jesus says when his accusers come to arrest him. Aren't you the one? I am. Is this the beggar? I am. See, this is John's version of Matthew 25. Who is it you're interrogating? Jesus. Whatsoever you do. You see, this is so hard for us to remember, though, isn't it? That every encounter with a human being is an encounter with Christ. This is where our Episcopalian brothers and sisters have it on us. They have the greatest line in their baptismal vows. Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons? Now, our version of this is, will you love your neighbor as yourself? But the way they word it, will you seek and serve Christ in the people whose 16 squares you're comfortable with? No. Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons? You see, we're just so good at forgetting that every human being has what the Quaker says, that of God in them. You know, it's this month that it's Walker Roberts and Eckel Cole, is it? I can't think of his name right now. The two sanitation workers. I mean, the story is hard to, I don't want to look at that story. I don't want to see it. Do you know what I'm talking about? The sanitation workers in Memphis. So February 1st, 1968, all black men are employed by the sanitation department. Is it Memphis or Montgomery? Yeah, Memphis. I just went there last year anyway. It's pouring down rain. The streets are flooding. Their equipment has not been updated. And Eckel and, I want to get their names right. Eckel Cole and Robert Walker. They were partners working on this, on their route. It's pouring down rain. The streets are flooding. They jump in the back of their garbage truck to escape the downpour. And it malfunctions. And they are crushed to death. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to see that. So that's because we forgot about their humanity. And so, let's put up the next, maybe you've seen this campaign. After that, it was right after this, that it was the famous speech from MLK, I have seen the mountaintop, where he went to Memphis to address this issue, the death of these two men who were treated in such a dehumanizing way. And so after that, the streets were flooded with sanitation workers carrying these signs, I am a man. Like the beggar, I am the man. I exist, I am present, I am living, and I am breathing. And for years since then, it's now been 51 years. These are children at a school, I think outside of DC. Young boys and girls remembering that we forgot. Remembering and reminding us again and again, I am a human being. And I don't know why it's so easy for us, particularly to forget this about the poor. We forget it with everybody, particularly people we might be mad at or disagree with or who threaten us, but it's a particular issue with the poor. I have a son who has just gone back to school. He lives in Atlanta, and so he's been riding his bike to Georgia State classes in downtown Atlanta. And he said, Mom, I got to tell you, there's a lot of homeless people in downtown Atlanta. And I found myself in the first week, I just didn't want to make eye contact with them. And then I said to myself, what a jerk. What a jerk I am. I can at least give them the dignity of looking at them. Because I'm going to feel guilty that I'm not going to give them anything. He's like, should I be giving them something? Probably. He's wrestling with all the right things. But he says, I didn't even want to look at him. I don't want to look. And he said, but I've made a commitment that I am going to look them in the eyes and speak to them. The least I can do is give them that much dignity, the dignity of a look in the eye and a hello. He said, Mom, it's not easy. Like, sometimes they get mad at me because I've looked at them. Sometimes they get mad at me because, he goes, I've learned not to say, how you doing? Because they're like, I'm on the street, kid. Although he said, sometimes they'll say something really great. I heard from my kid today. Anyway, Walker's telling me this, and he's very earnest, and he's like, Mom, can we make some of those bags I think your church used to do, so I can give them, a bag of, granola bars and deodorant or something, I'm like, I can't believe you're wrestling with this. You have to hear this song that I heard recently. In fact, I heard the person perform it. We're going to play it for you, but I want to tell you that it got into maybe the second verse, and Walker stopped it, and he goes, Mom, this is a little trite. I go, wait for it. Listen to the whole thing. So I want you to hear it.
Bright light on the corner of a dark street. Just a cardboard sign and a candy between some dirty bare feet. Eyes that I can't bring myself to meet. Yeah, well, I could spare 20 if I knew you'd be using it to get just what you need. And ooh, 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 I'm just another cold shoulder. Ooh, ooh, but you're somebody's brother. You're somebody's son, somebody's mother, father, somebody's someone, somebody's missing you wherever you came from and wherever you go. somebody's someone. You're somebody's someone. You're picking up the phone, who's it gonna be this time? Yeah, this time. It's the sound of your voice, but it ain't really you on the line. Yeah, when you're gonna come out on the other side? Well, it's on you, 'cause you know there ain't nothing we could do, no matter how hard we're trying. Ooh, 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 can't make you drink that water. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But you're somebody's brother, somebody's son, somebody's mother, father, somebody's someone, and somebody's missing you wherever you came from, and wherever you go, I hope you know you're somebody's someone. You're somebody's someone. And I lose you time and time again, but I will be there with you until the end. 'Cause you're my only brother, you're my mother's son, and I'm still your little sister. Somebody's someone, and we're all still missing you back where you came from, and wherever you go, we hope you know you're somebody's someone. You're somebody's someone. You're somebody's someone. You're somebody's someone. Bright light on a corner of a dark street.
I was at a songwriters festival and I heard Daphne sing this song. She's now really devoted much of her life to raising awareness around mental health issues. Because you're my little brother and you're my mother's son. You know, Walker was reacting a little bit in the beginning. You're somebody's someone. No, but that's the point. You're my little brother. I remember having this feeling, similar feeling, when the Charlottesville riots happened. I was watching the news in absolute horror. And I had this thought, like, because those boys were my son's ages. And my immediate thought was, who are their mothers? Where are these boys' mothers? And then I had the immediate thought after that, Pam, they're your sons too. They are your sons too. They are your children and my children. They are our brothers, and they are screaming with everything they have. We haven't felt seen. Somebody see us. That doesn't mean we condone what they're doing. It doesn't mean, but listen, we've got to see them. We've got to see beyond their 16 squares. We've got to ask and get underneath and say, where does it hurt? But it's just so easy to get stuck at the 16 squares. The people saw a beggar Jesus saw a human being with a need. Joan Halifax is a Zen teacher, and she had the interesting and just amazing experience. At the age of 4, she went totally blind. And at 6, she regained her sight. She had 2 years of being blind. And you should listen to her interview. She says, it was so formative because I discovered that there was an inner world that I could explore, my own inner world. I could go beyond the 16 squares. But she said, when I got my sight back, I realized everybody's got that. Everybody's got that inner world. And she has given, her life's work has been to help people see their own inner world and also to help them understand and explore the inner worlds of others, to see inside. I think being a disciple of Jesus is about being committed to seeing inside. It's about being committed to seeing a human being with a need and not just a beggar, a rebellious teenager, an old person who's past their time. Not just any of those labels that we put on each other, not just a criminal. I met, is it the Rollins? Yes. So, right, I mean, they're doing great work. Because you know who we label? People who've been in jail. And then they can't get a job because that's their 16 squares. But what's underneath? Is it a human being longing for a second chance? Longing for someone to give them a second chance? To give them a wing and a prayer of building a life once they're free? So they're doing good. There's all kinds of ways that when we follow Jesus, we look beyond just the 16 squares and we say, where is the human being? And what is the need? You know, Martin Buber is a great Jewish theologian who wrote a little book, I and Thou. I, thou, right? The I, thou relationship. Maybe you're familiar with it. His whole thing was the beginning of life is relationship. And he says when two people genuinely and authentically and humanly see each other, the very energy of God is passing between them. That's what's happening. When we stop seeing people just as objects, but we say, I believe that there is that of God in you and that of God in me wants to greet you. And that's what one of the things, his book is very, very old, but he references the Zulu greeting, Sawubuna. Sawubuna. And I was thinking about Walker when he said, Mom, you know, it's a little awkward to say, hi, how you doing? That's our greeting. That's our common greeting. Hi, hello, how you doing? And I said, Walker, too bad we don't have the Zulu greeting, which is Sawubona. Say it with me. Sawubona. Sawubona, and Buber goes to great lengths to say, look, we've come a long way since the primal people and you know, all these advancements, but they understood the essential unity of being human. And they have these great words that express that understanding that we no longer have. Sawubona was one of them. The greeting in Zulu is not, hey, how you doing? It's literally, we see you. I see you. I've thought about what it would be like for Walker to come up to a corner and just say, I see you, man. I see you. I see you. We long to be seen, all of us. So one last story I have to tell you. I was in Fort Collins, Colorado last weekend. It was 2 degrees. There was a snowstorm. But you know, they're behind us in time. So I woke up at 5:30. I couldn't go back to sleep. The coffee shop in our hotel was not open yet, but there was a Starbucks 3.5 blocks down the road. So I bundled up and I said, I'm going. I don't want to wait. And I get about 1.5 blocks down, and a young man approaches me. Now, my conversation with Walker is fresh, this song, you know. And of course, I look him in the eye, engage, and I said, my gosh, did you spend the night outside last night? He's about Walker's age. He's my kid's age. He's pushing a cart, and he goes, I go, you did not spend the night out here last night. He goes, yeah, I've got a really good sleeping bag. And I was like, what? And you know, I never have cash on me. I'm like, I might have $4, but I'm going to Starbucks. Do you want to come get a cup of coffee with me? So he pushes his cart. Now, this is the part that you're gonna think I'm making it up. So we start walking towards Starbucks together. And I say to him, what's your name? And he says, Trinity. The church I just left is named Trinity, besides the Godhead, right? I mean, I'm like, your name is what? Trinity. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? How did you get that name? My mother gave it to me. I go, so what's your given name? Yes. Where is your mom now? Tell me about your mom. Well, we lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but she married a guy who didn't like me, and he was really abusive. I got some scholarships to go to school, but not enough, so I took out some loans. My mom's moved to Portland now. I ran out of money. I've got school debt, but I didn't finish. I was majoring in literature. I imagine he might have had some kind of bipolar, I don't know. But Trinity, he's my son. Look, it's complicated. I don't know. What should I have done? But I know I saw him. I know I saw him. And I know that he felt seen. And that's what we're all longing for, to be seen inside, to have somebody say, I see you, we see you, you are important, I value you. I deeply witness your very presence. Because you're not just somebody's brother or sister. You're mine. And I see that of God in you. And that is what it means and where loving people starts. To follow Jesus is to love God and love neighbor, to seek and serve Christ in all persons. That's where discipleship starts. Sawubuna. Amen.